doesn't happen because of laws. Laws do protect us, from many things, but when it comes to attributes and being able to show someone, whether it's your family, your neighbors, or your employees, what your expectations are, I think that businesses have been slowly but surely meeting the expectations of the society around it. And so, colleagues, I think Senator Christ is correct. We have debated this. We've debated this for years now, not just this last year. I think it's time to move forward, and if we need to look at it again, so be it. But at this point in time, I haven't convinced that a change is needed. And thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, colleagues.
Thank you, Senator Brosh. Senator Moorfield, you're next in the queue.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just to respond to a few things, and then this will be the last time I talk before we vote on the bracket motion. In response to Senator Christ, it seems as though he's a bit upset that we're debating this again after we debated on the floor last year. And regardless of whether or not I would have asked the Speaker to pull the bill from the agenda, the purpose of which was to sit down with different parties and try to find some kind of compromise, which is the purpose of a deliberative body such as this. But regardless of that fact, and regardless of the fact that it's my prerogative as an elected member of the legislature to prioritize whichever bill I like, I would have introduced the same exact bill this year, even if 586 still didn't exist and was carryover legislation. And I will come back with this bill every single year that I'm in this body. And not only that, next year I'm going to come back with expanded protections for housing and for all the other places that we protect some people who are born a certain way, whether it be male, female, black or white, anything else, to provide the same protections to ensure the dignity of all Nebraskans are afforded equal protection under the law. These are not special rights. This is equal protection under the law. This conversation will not go away. In fact, it's just begun. I may also have some amendments to some people's priority bills this session that deal with non-discrimination. So we can keep kicking this issue down the road, colleagues, but it's not going away. I would propose that we defeat the bracket motion and pass the bill. It's not going to result in jobs going away. It's not going to result in people's religious liberty being violated because firing somebody because you don't believe in their lifestyle outside of the workplace is somehow against your religion, and therefore, in order to have it not violate your religion, in order to not do that, you somehow have to fire somebody so you don't affirm that, which makes absolutely no sense. I can barely even say it doesn't make any sense. Senator Kittner somehow brings up the point that firing somebody because they're gay is peaceful expression. Well, firing somebody because someone's gay, I would submit to all of you colleagues, is not very peaceful. But I suppose we all have our different definitions of what peaceful expression looks like. The bottom line is that in Nebraska, we should have these basic protections of human rights. Back in the 1950s and 60s, we had these same discussions when we passed the Civil Rights Act. We had the same discussions about whether we should have protected classes, but we realized that we are better as a society when we protect the dignity of who people are and how they were born. And that we can have respectful disagreements about certain people, but that should not play out in the workforce. It should not play out in our economy. And that we as a country have an obligation to protect that dignity of those individuals based on who they are and how they were born. Colleagues, I ask that you vote against the bracket motion and that we get the job done this year. Because if not, we're going to come back every year and we're going to have the same discussion. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Moorfield. Chair recognizes Senator Panzine Brooks.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you for those wonderful words, Senator Moorfield, and I will stand with you in the next year and the year after that. Then if we're reelected, the years after that. We will keep bringing this and we will keep discussing this. This effort to just shut down the discussion. How many years have we discussed helmets, my friends? There wasn't an attempt to shut down Senator Bloomfield. That discussion has gone on and on and on, and people have said that wouldn't have happened in previous years, that you wouldn't get to keep bringing it up. We have never gone to cloture. Last year, Senator Moorfield and I were new state senators, and we still are. But we agreed with the speaker and pulled the bill last year. Everybody said, oh, don't bring this up. It's too hard to talk about. Oh, you don't have the votes. Why is it that other people get to take it to the vote without having to have it bracketed? Why is it that other people can go through a full filibuster, except on this issue that we care so vehemently about? We're going to bracket it. We're going to cut discussion. We're going to make sure that these discussions aren't continued to the full debate. I've been hearing that we don't have any information from people. Here's some of the letters quickly. I speak to you today as a former state ward. I am here to provide the perspective of a young person who aged out and who is seeking employment and college as a member of the LGBTQ community, thus would be directly impacted by this bill. 4 years ago, I aged out of the foster care system after entering at age 15. I learned to support myself, presented many challenges, including losing all family support and struggling financially. I'd like to share 3 reasons why it's so important to me. When I was coming out, I had a job that didn't like the fact that I was transgender, so they did everything I could to get me to quit, but I didn't let them, so they fired me instead. I think LB 586 would prevent future youth from reliving that horrible experience. Again, as a young professional and gay man, it is difficult to know if, when, how to come out to my coworkers on the job, and it's even more terrifying knowing that I can be legally fired for being an LGBT plus person from Lincoln, Nebraska. Another one, my friends live in constant fear of losing their jobs simply for who they love. And without this bill, I may someday know this fear as well. Lincoln, Nebraska. In my own organization, one of my employees was the victim of discrimination against him by a coworker after she learned that he is gay. As the direct supervisor and director of the organization, it was through my investigation that I discovered her motivation, which I discovered through her repeated gay-bashing posts on her very open Facebook page. I watched my very capable and confident employees second-guess every decision and move that he made about her allegations, and it took him a long time to gain his confidence back professionally. I can't help but to think about what would have happened in this situation without my protection. Please don't allow this to happen. We need a better place for Nebraska. We're all better than that. I have story after story after story, my friends, so it's easy for Senator McCoy to say, oh, we haven't heard from these people. Well, then I don't think that you're reading. We had over 200 people in the rotunda yesterday supporting this. I've heard from one of my colleagues who said they have a gay person that comes to Christmas because that family has disowned him. So what about if that person's father is an employer, thank you, or mother is an employer in Nebraska? If they disown their own son, do you not think they would also discriminate against somebody working for them for the same problem? We all know in our hearts, I know that each of you knows in your own heart that the discriminations exist, and when you make this vote today, you are agreeing to the fact that they exist and that you're willing to do nothing about it. So when you make that vote, just remember that in your heart. We all know the discrimination exists. However you justify it, it exists, and we each can live with that with our constituents and our friends and our family and those around us, our coworkers. Thank you, Mr. President. Please vote against the bracket bill. Let this go all the way so we can have a full vote on LB 586. Thank you, Senator Moorfield, for bringing this bill.
Thank you, Senator Pansing Brooks. Senator Chambers, you're next in queue.
Thank you, and I'm glad I get to speak before Senator Kittner gets out of the chamber. What was the first thing I told you all would happen? Somebody would seize those words that I said, if I had a gun, I would do this. They'd grab those words, and that's what they would be upset about. Here he did it. Now, he said that he compared you all to monkeys. Well, when I made my comment, I didn't say you all would shoot anybody. I said I would. Now, do you think the speaker or anybody else would have got upset if he compared himself to a monkey? That's where his would be analogous to mine. He compared himself to a monkey, and then somebody get upset? No, nobody get upset. He can compare himself to whomever and whatever he pleases. But he's that pompous kind of person who's going to say all kind of horrible things on his gadget and wonder why people outside this chamber have such a very low regard for him. People have sent me things that he puts on there. I tell them, don't read it. Don't read what he puts on there. And they put some of the reactions that they have to it. And all I tell them is, if you're going to let somebody else get you this upset, then they own you. I can't do anything about what's happening with him. He can do whatever he wants to, but you ought to be glad he's showing what he is. There's a certain creature which has no legs and rattles. That rattle lets you know where he is and what he is. Be glad when the snake rattles. My words are all that I'm using. And I hear Senator Brosh again, how much protection you're going to give people. I bet she'd be offended if I talked about what the Ukrainians did at Treblinka 1 and Treblinka 2. Treblinka was a small village in Poland occupied by the Nazis, and they killed